Great. Hello. Good morning. My name is Duri. I, as Brian mentioned, am a new assistant professor here in communication studies. I just started in September. And today I'm going to be talking with you about fostering public engagement with AI through creativity. So before I get started, I just want to give a little broader context to what my research is focused on. My research is broadly concerned with this question of how we can build better understanding between people and AI. So I do a lot of work on sort of the education side of things, so developing learning experiences to help families and other people learn about AI technologies and develop AI literacy. And on the flip side, I also explore how to develop AI that can better understand us and engage with us in sort of social, creative environments. So that's kind of the big picture of my research. I just came off the job market, so I've been talking a lot about my education work, and I wanted to take this opportunity today in this session about creativity to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my work in creating public art to explore how people can engage creatively with AI. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And some emerging research that I'm sort of starting to conduct and investigate new directions on. So today I'm going to be talking mostly about this question of how we can engage a broader audience in discussions about what AI could or should look like in the future. And this differs a little bit from some of my work, which is more focused on communicating sort of concrete learning objectives about AI, so teaching people sort of high-level ideas about how AI works, like the idea that computers learn from data or that AI uses knowledge representations to reason and make decisions. That's some of what my other work focuses on. Today I'm interested in this question more of fostering like debate and discussion amongst non-expert audiences about what AI could be in the future, how it could fit into our society. So I think we've been having a lot of really great discussions in this room amongst AI, HCI, design researchers about some of these questions about human-AI interaction in the future. And I'm really interested in how we can engage sort of the broader public in some of these conversations. And one of the ways that I have done this in my own work is to bring AI into public and cultural spaces like museums and art galleries, as well as I'm also interested in working in other public spaces like public squares or public libraries in the future. And I do a lot of work, as I mentioned, on developing creative AI or AI that can collaborate creatively with people. And I have sort of expanded that work and sort of looked at it from sort of an installation design angle. And how do we engage people in these public spaces in engaging with these technologies, and what types of sort of questions and discussions can these open up? And this is sort of towards a big picture idea of what could it look like if opportunities to sort of learn about and engage in discussions about AI and its role in our society, what could it look like if those were, as common in our lives as AI products are that kind of like fade into the background and might be, more invisible or not necessarily focused on fostering discussion. So I want to touch a little bit before I dive into talking about specific projects on like why I think creativity and like creative contexts for AI is an interesting and particularly like well-suited context for fostering discussion about AI and what it could be in the future. And I think there's a few reasons for this. First, creative activities are open-ended, so people can sort of take different paths through the activity and come out in different spaces, explore different things. And I think that this invites exploration, both of what you can sort of create and make with AI, and also of sort of like exploration of the AI's capabilities and limitations as you sort of poke and prod at it and see what happens. I also think that creative activities are often personally meaningful, so you often put a little bit of yourself into a story that you tell, or a painting that you create, or a dance that you perform. And I think that this can open up some really interesting conversations about AI and the self. So what can I make with AI? What could I create with AI? How does AI impact me personally? I think these are some really interesting questions that creative spaces can open up. And finally, creative spaces are often playful spaces, and I think this sort of low-stakes, fun environment has the opportunity to foster imagination and also reduce intimidation amongst people who may not be comfortable talking about AI or maybe a little intimidated by the topic. So with that in mind, I want to talk about 3 different projects where I've sort of explored how to introduce AI in public spaces in creative contexts, and sort of the different ways that creativity sort of manifests itself in these different projects, and how that leads to different types of discussions. So the first project I want to talk about is Lumini, which is an improvisational AI dance partner. So as you can see here, this project has taken many different forms over the years. We've explored how to introduce it in sort of social settings where a lot of people are engaging with different agents at once, as well as a little bit more one-on-one type settings. But throughout all of the installations, you walk up to this projection of an AI avatar, and you start moving, you start dancing, and it will learn from your movements over time, so it's sort of breaking down your movement into gestures, and it will respond to your movements with movements that it deems to be appropriate. And it reasons about movements using theories from theater and dance, like viewpoints and Laban movement theory, so it can think about things like, oh, what's the rhythm, what's the tempo of the gesture, is it a really big gesture, is it a really small gesture, what's the energy, and respond appropriately. And the agent is also equipped with some social decision-making strategies, so it can reason about things like when its partner is taking on more of a leadership role, and it should, sort of step back and maybe follow them, versus when it should, innovate and sort of prompt its human partner to perform more novel dance moves. And we've installed this in a variety of public spaces, and I think that this project in particular engages people in a unique way with AI, where AI is positioned as an improvisational partner, which is a way that we don't engage with AI very often, in our everyday lives, where AI may become more of a tool or an assistant, or even fade into the background where we don't notice it at all. And so I think this prompts conversations about what our interactions with AI could look like in the future, what collaborations could look like with AI, what it means for AI to be a collaborative creative partner with you. And I think this project also invites sort of open-ended, real-time exploration, where you can sort of, see in real time how your actions affect this agent and sort of reason about the agent's capabilities and limitations. The next project I want to talk about is a project I worked on several years ago called Shape of Story, which is a sort of intimate storytelling experience with AI. So this was a much more structured, facilitated experience that we installed in an art gallery. And we invited people to come into this space and sit in a circle sort of around this projected circle of light, sort of sitting around a campfire. And people were invited to tell a story, sort of line by line, passing this sort of speaking device around the circle. And as they told the story, an AI used natural language processing to generate a symbolic visualization of that story in the center of the circle. And I won't talk, about the whole symbolic language here, but just to say it was sort of a one-to-one mapping. So each story created a unique visualization in the center. And this, sort of more intimate storytelling experience, I think really invited questions about how we communicate with AI, the language that we're using to communicate with AI and the language that AI is, using to communicate back with us and interpret us and our actions. I think it also invites questions about sort of different ways that AI can contribute to our creative products and how it might be able to augment our creativity. So that was this project. And then the third project I want to talk about is called Sound Happening. And in this project, participants could play with these sort of colorful bouncy balls or beach balls. And as they move them around the space, computer vision tracking sort of tracks where the balls are located, both sort of in the XY plane as well as vertically, and how close the balls are in proximity to each other, how fast they're moving. And based on these variables, it generates different music as you're moving around the space. So it's sort of this musical play space where you can engage in sort of embodied physical play together with other people. And this is really popular for all age groups, but especially young kids, as they can sort of engage in this embodied play space. And I think this project has an interesting sort of AI-augmented physical play environment that can open up discussions about the ways in which AI and technology more broadly can foster connection between us as people, foster our own collaboration, and sort of augment and spur that on. So with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about sort of future directions I see myself going with this. The topic of speculative design has come up a couple times in talks. yesterday, and I'm really interested in exploring speculative design as another way of creatively engaging people in public spaces. So with questions about AI specifically. I may be re-explaining this to some, but for those that aren't familiar with speculative design, speculative designs usually take the form of scenarios, often starting with a what-if question, and are intended to open up spaces of debate and discussion. Therefore, they're by necessity provocative, intentionally simplified, and fictional. Their fictional nature requires viewers to suspend their disbelief and to allow their imaginations to wander, to momentarily forget how things are, and to wonder about how things could be. So again, I just want to emphasize, like, the real focus of speculative design is to open up spaces of debate and discussion, which is why I think it might be an interesting direction to look at in the future for public art. Related to AI. And it also, this definition doesn't necessarily capture this, but it's sort of like grounded in our everyday use of technology. What could our technologies that we're interacting with today look like in the future? What could they look like if things had happened differently in the past? So I'm sort of interested in engaging with the sort of critical lens that's sort of grounded in our everyday use of technology in the future. I'm going to skip over those examples because we talked a little bit about speculative design yesterday. Just emphasize, I'm really interested in engaging speculative design, particularly surrounding the question of how we communicate with AI. So asking questions about how we could communicate with AI in the future, what novel modalities we might use to communicate with AI, and what breakdowns could occur in our interactions with AI. So I'm teaching a class on this right now where students are engaging in weekly design projects to explore different ways that humans and AI might communicate in the future along dimensions like gesture and conversation, as well as like sound and touch, and thinking about questions like explainability, interpretability, like deceit in communication. So those are some of the themes that we're touching on. And I've also explored how to introduce speculative activities in some workshops that I've conducted with families and kids, engaging them in thinking about how we could communicate with AI in the future. So looking forward, I'm interested in exploring how to get people, engaging in speculation about this, both in public spaces as well as in sort of more like workshop or educational settings. So in summary, today I talked about 3 approaches that I have taken in my work to introducing creative AI in public spaces, introducing AI as an improvisational partner, an intimate aesthetic experience with AI, and AI-augmented physical play. And in the future, I'm interested in exploring what speculative design can bring to this work, especially as it relates to human-AI communication. So thank you so much. And